I still remember the sound of that door closing behind me, slow, heavy, final. My daughter stood there, her eyes cold, her voice trembling as she said, "Mom, please understand, he doesn't feel comfortable having you here anymore." Her husband stood a few steps behind her, arms crossed, his eyes avoiding mine. I looked at her, my own daughter, the little girl whose hand I held through storms, whose hair I used to braid every morning before school, and in that moment, I realized something I never wanted to believe: she was choosing him over me. It felt like the world went silent. The walls of the house I helped her build seemed to push me out. My heart screamed, "This can't be real," but her face, her trembling lips and lowered eyes, told me that it was. I stood there in silence, holding a small bag with nothing but a few clothes and an old photo of her as a child. I wanted to ask why, to shout, "After everything I gave up for you, after every night I stayed awake praying for your happiness, how could you?" But I didn't. I simply nodded and walked away. The sound of that door locking behind me still echoes in my heart. Because that was the day I lost my daughter, not to death, but to pride, to comfort, to someone who convinced her that a mother's love could be replaced. But that wasn't the whole story. Because what happened in the days that followed would change everything. Hi everyone, this is Grandma Ruth. Today, I want to tell you a story that might sound like your own, or maybe like someone you know, a story about love, sacrifice, and the pain of being forgotten by the person you raised. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to this channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And maybe, share a little piece of your story too, because sometimes, healing begins when we speak. Her name is Anna, my only daughter. I raised her alone after her father passed away when she was just 5. We didn't have much, but I gave her everything I could: my time, my dreams, my strength. I worked double shifts at a diner, mended clothes at night, and went to bed with aching hands just so she could have an education and a warm meal. She was my whole world. Every birthday, every scraped knee, every school play, I was there. When she got accepted into college, I sold the small piece of land her father left behind. I wanted her to have a chance, a better life than mine. When she met David, I was happy. He seemed kind, polite, gentle, always bringing flowers when he came to visit. But slowly, things changed. He started making small comments, little jabs that cut deeper than they seemed. "Maybe it's time you found a place of your own, Mrs. Collins. We need some privacy." Anna would scold him lightly, but she never stopped him. Slowly, my place in their home began to shrink, first the living room, then the kitchen, until finally, I was told to keep my things in my room. It hurt, but I stayed quiet. Because a mother doesn't argue with her child's happiness. Then came that morning, the one that changed everything. I had made breakfast early, like I always did. Pancakes, just the way Anna liked them when she was little. She came down, but her eyes looked different, distant, unsure. "Mom," she began softly, "David thinks it's time you move out. We found you a place near Maple Street. It's small and quiet, and we'll pay the rent for a few months until you're settled." I froze. "You found me a place?" I asked, hoping I misunderstood. She nodded, avoiding my eyes. "It's for the best, Mom. You'll have peace and space. We'll visit." Peace and space. That's what she called it. I wanted to ask, peace from what? From me? From the woman who gave up her dreams so she could have hers? But my throat tightened and my voice broke. I couldn't say anything. All I managed to whisper was, "If that's what you want, Anna, then okay." She looked relieved, and that hurt the most. Relief to let me go. That afternoon, I packed my things. A few clothes, a blanket, and the framed photo of her on her first day of school. I ran my fingers over the picture, tracing her tiny face. She had been smiling that day, holding my hand and saying, "Don't ever leave me, Mommy." Funny how time changes everything. I left quietly. No tears, just silence. I moved into the small house they rented for me, old walls, squeaky floors, but quiet. Too quiet. At night, I sat by the window, looking at the faint glow of their neighborhood in the distance. I wondered if she ever looked back, if she even thought of me. But that wasn't the end. Because just when I thought I had lost her forever, life showed me that even the deepest pain carries a hidden purpose. What happened next would not only open her eyes but remind her what love, real love, truly means. It was a cold autumn evening when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. I rarely got calls anymore, except for the occasional telemarketer or wrong number. But something about that sound. Something in my heart told me to pick up. When I did, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in months. Trembling, broken, barely recognizable, it was Anna. "Mom," she whispered. Just that one word, and every wall I had built around my heart began to crumble. "Mom, I don't know what to do." David left. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I could hear her crying, gasping between sobs. "He took everything, Mom," she said. "The money, the car, even the savings account. He said he was going on a business trip. But he never came back." I held the phone tightly, feeling my heart twist in my chest. My daughter, the same girl who had pushed me away, who had chosen someone else over me, was now alone and broken. I wanted to feel angry. I wanted to say, "I warned you." But all I felt was love. A deep, aching love that never truly went away. "Anna," I said softly, "it's okay, sweetheart. Come home." There was silence on the other end. Then she asked, through her tears, "Home? You mean your place?" "Yes," I whispered. "My home. Your home. Always." That night, I waited by the door, just like I used to when she was a teenager coming home late. The clock ticked past midnight, the wind howled outside, and my small house felt colder than ever. Then, finally, I heard footsteps. The door creaked open, and there she was. Her hair was messy, her eyes red, her shoulders shaking. She looked at me like a child again, lost and scared. Without saying a word, she dropped her bag and ran into my arms. She cried against my chest like she used to when she scraped her knees. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she kept repeating. "I'm so sorry." I held her tight, running my fingers through her hair. "SHH, it's okay," I whispered. "You're home now." That night, we sat at my small kitchen table. The same one where I used to serve her pancakes years ago. I made her tea, and for the first time in months, I saw her smile, faint, tired, but real. She told me everything. How David had changed after their marriage. How he controlled everything, her friends, her finances, even her choices. How she kept quiet because she was scared, because she didn't want to believe she had made a mistake. And I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't say, "I told you so." Because sometimes, love means silence. Just listening, without judgment. But as she spoke, I realized something else. David had not only taken her money. He had taken her dignity, her confidence, her belief in herself. And that broke me. The next morning, I went to the old wooden chest I kept under my bed. Inside were a few small boxes, my life savings. Money I'd earned over years of sewing clothes, cleaning houses, and saving a little every month. It wasn't much, but it was something. I handed it to her quietly. "This will help you for now," I said. She looked at me, tears filling her eyes. "Mom, no, I can't take this. You've already done so much." I smiled softly. "You're my daughter. A mother never stops giving." She hugged me again, crying harder this time. And for the first time, I felt peace, not because I was helping her, but because life had brought her back. Because maybe sometimes, love has to let go so that it can return stronger. But deep down, I knew things weren't over. I knew the storm wasn't done yet. Because a week later, something happened that neither of us expected. One morning, a black car stopped outside my little house. A tall man in a suit stepped out, holding a brown envelope. He knocked gently on my door. When I opened it, he said, "Mrs. Collins, I'm here about your daughter's husband, David Miller." Anna froze when she heard his name. The man handed me the envelope. "This belongs to you, ma'am." It was found in Mr. Miller's safe. Inside were a few documents, a letter, and something that would change everything we thought we knew about what happened. The letter began with the words, "If you're reading this, then I've already left. But there's something you need to know about your husband, Anna, and about the money." I looked up at her. Her face went pale. "What does it mean, Mom?" she whispered. I didn't answer. Because even I didn't know yet. But I could feel it, whatever that letter held, was going to shake her world all over again. When I unfolded that letter, my hands trembled so badly that the paper made a soft crinkling sound. Anna sat across from me at the table, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. The man in the suit quietly left, closing the door behind him. For a few moments, the only sound in the room was the clock ticking on the wall, the same old clock that had survived through all our years, just like me. I took a deep breath and began to read. "Anna," it said, "I know you hate me. Maybe one day, you'll understand. I made mistakes, bigger than you can imagine. The people I borrowed money from weren't good people. I tried to fix it before it reached you, but I couldn't. I took everything we had, hoping to buy our safety. If anything happens, please go to your mother. She's the only one who truly knows what love is." When I finished, my eyes filled with tears. Anna stared at me, speechless. "Mom," she whispered, he wasn't just leaving me." I shook my head slowly. "No, sweetheart. He was running from something, maybe trying to protect you." She put her head in her hands and cried quietly. I reached across the table and took her hand, the same way I used to when she was little, afraid of thunder. I didn't have all the answers. But I knew this: love, in any form, is complicated. It breaks, it heals, it changes. Days passed. She stayed with me, slowly coming back to life. We cooked together, cleaned together, sat by the porch in the evenings watching the sun go down. For the first time in years, laughter returned to my home. She even began to smile again, those small, hesitant smiles that I hadn't seen since she was a child. One afternoon, I found her sitting by the old sewing machine I'd kept in the corner. She looked up at me and said, "Mom, do you remember how you used to make dresses for me from your old clothes?" I nodded, smiling faintly. "How could I forget? You'd always twirl in front of the mirror and say, one day, I'll buy you a real dress, Mom. She laughed softly. I never did I? I smiled. You don't have to. You're here. That's enough. That evening, as we ate together, she said something that I'll never forget. Mom, I was wrong. I thought love was about choosing someone who made me feel complete. But now I know, real love is the one that stays even when the world falls apart. You were right all along. I didn't respond. I just reached out and touched her cheek. Because sometimes, silence carries more forgiveness than words ever can. Weeks turned into months. Anna found a small job at a local bakery. She began rebuilding her life, step by step. And I watched with pride, keeping my distance, letting her grow on her own again. Then, one day, she came home with a small box wrapped in a blue ribbon. She placed it on the table and said, Mom, open it. Inside was a beautiful gold necklace, simple, elegant, shining softly under the afternoon light. It's not much, she said, but it's something I wanted to do for you. You sold your gold once to save me, and I never even said thank you. So, this is my way of giving it back. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My throat tightened, and tears blurred my vision. I touched the necklace gently, feeling its weight, not just of metal, but of memories, forgiveness, and love. Oh, sweetheart, I whispered, you didn't need to do this. I did, she said, smiling through her tears. Because now I finally understand what love really looks like. We hugged, and in that small, quiet moment, everything that had once been broken began to feel whole again. Now, years later, as I sit in this same small house with my granddaughter beside me, I tell her this story. She listens wide-eyed, holding my hand tightly. And I say to her, darling, life will test your heart in ways you can't imagine. People will leave, and sometimes you lose yourself trying to hold them. But remember this, love that demands nothing, love that gives without keeping score, that's the kind that saves you. She smiles, resting her head on my shoulder. Outside, the sun sets behind the hills, painting the sky in gold, the same color as that necklace Anna gave me. I close my eyes, feeling the warmth of my granddaughter beside me, and whisper quietly, I sold my gold once to save them. But what I gained back was worth far more. And that's the thing about love, it always finds its way home.